Hypothesis. The concept of the hypothesis is one of the most fundamental ideas in really understanding science and how science works. Sociology is a scientific discipline, and so we use hypotheses, we do hypothesis testing. You can't understand sociology and sociological methods in particular without a good understanding of what a hypothesis is. So, what is a hypothesis? You've probably heard something like this. A hypothesis is an educated guess. And that's not really a terrible definition, but it's not complete or detailed enough to really give us a good understanding of the concept. We need something more if we really want to understand this idea completely and correctly, and in a way that's useful to scientific understanding. So the best definition that I've ever heard for a hypothesis goes something like this. A hypothesis is a testable statement about the relationship between two or more variables. Okay, the key ideas here are testable, and relationship, and variable. So in science, right, if we're testing a hypothesis, we're making a statement, a prediction about the relationship between two things. How are these things connected to one another? That's their relationship. We want to test our idea, and then that tells us something about those things, right? Is our idea correct? Is it not correct? Both results are useful. We'll get to that in a second. Just to help you, in case you don't remember, what is a variable? A variable is any quality that varies between cases. In sociology, most of the time, the cases that we're looking at are individual people. Right? We know everyone's different. Everyone has different qualities, different experiences, and how those differences or those different qualities work together is an important part of how we do the discipline of sociology. So let me give you an example to kind of walk you through this. Let's say we have two people, and right, these are two cases. And let's look at just two variables to keep it simple. One variable is age, right? Every human has an age. We'll say this person is 16, and we'll say this person is 23. Okay? Age is a condition that every person has, and it varies from person to person. You can measure it in years, you can measure it in seconds. However you measure it, it's going to be a little bit different for each person. Okay? Let's measure something else. Let's look at another variable. Let's look at education. Right? People have different degrees of education. Some people are in school longer, some people less, so on and so forth. Okay? So this is another variable. This person at 16 is probably going to be in high school. This person at 23, they're probably going to be in college. Right? Again, this is a condition, a quality that varies between cases. Now, we're going to make a hypothesis, right, about the relationship between these two variables. What's the relationship between age and education? So we're going to label age, this is variable A, and education is variable B. Okay? So we have A and we have B, and we think, we hypothesize that there is a relationship between those variables. All right, so we're going to make a testable statement about the relationship between these two variables. And we're going to say that we think that as age increases, education will also increase. So the older you get, the more education you have. Now, I know this sounds ridiculously simple, but this is the best way to explain how hypothesis testing works, right? Our statement, our testable hypothesis, is that the older a person gets, the higher their education will be, right? That's a statement about the relationship between two variables. In this case, the variables of age and education. So what do? I do research, I perform experiments, I do surveys, probably is the easiest way to answer this particular question. And I draw and I find out some kind of results, right? There's some kind of a conclusion. The conclusion can be one of two things. I can either support the hypothesis, that relationship I predicted is correct, or I can disprove or reject the hypothesis. I can find that the hypothesis is in fact not correct. What I thought the relationship was is not actually accurate. Okay? Both of these results in hypothesis testing are equally useful. Either way, I'm learning something about the relationship between the variables I'm interested in. Okay? Now again, in this example, it's pretty obvious. In most school systems, you get more education as you get older and older. It's so obvious that probably no one would even bother studying it. But it illustrates the idea, right? What is a hypothesis, and how do we use it in science? A hypothesis is a testable statement about the relationship between two or more variables. We test our ideas, our predictions about how things relate in order to learn about them. Another way of saying it, similar language or similar idea but different language. A hypothesis is a statement or prediction which we use as the basis for empirical inquiry. You have to understand what a hypothesis is well and correctly and completely if you want to understand the way science works and the way scientific knowledge can contribute to the rest of society. So, thanks for watching.